called? It's a custard, but it's half cake, half lemon curd. And I'll blog about them soon. All right, because they were really, really good. Chef Daniel is making bao buns. Chef Daniel, that's ambitious and perfect for the weekend and the Lunar New Year celebration. That's awesome. All right, everyone, we're going to start in about 30 seconds. Anybody else, what you're baking? Hi, Mrs. Spittles. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Anne. Hello, everyone. It's great to see you. Thanks for joining. All right, it's 12 noon. Yesterday, every Friday, you will see in my Instagram feed a call for questions. So please collect your baking questions during the week, and you can put them there. Or, of course, you can always bring your questions in the moment. So first, I do have some questions to start. And first, I have a shout out to one of our bakers who wrote in saying that she is making Danish today. She's using the recipe from Danish from Scratch, my Danish class on Craftsy. So we hope your baking is going well and that you're having fun laminating your Danish. So good luck with that. Any questions? Let us know. Okay, our first question is about challah. And last week we had, this is a follow-up to the challah question we had last week. So one of our bakers has written in and she said she has seen recipes for challah, and that's the beautiful braided enriched dough bread that's traditionally made for Friday Shabbat, but is also delicious any other day of the week, and so makes wonderful French toast and sandwiches. So she writes in that she has seen recipes for challah that have no bulk fermentation, which means after the dough is mixed, it's just shaped, and only one rise after shaping. And then also 2 bulk rises, 2 bulk fermentations. So an hour, let's say, bulk fermentation, punch it down, well, gas. We don't punch our doughs anymore. That's just a little too aggressive. Satisfying, but aggressive. Let it rise again, and then shape your challah. So I want to speak to that. Challah is an enriched dough, and the yeast needs to really, in an enriched dough, there are other ingredients besides flour and water that the yeast needs to work around. So personally, I would be suspect of any formulas or recipes that did not employ that first bulk fermentation, because how else does the yeast begin to expand and multiply, create the carbon dioxide gas necessary to stretch the gluten structure? So that's something I can't agree with. Now, perhaps if the baker is using maybe an active, a rapid rise yeast that's been treated with enzymes to increase the enzymatic activity, maybe that's a workaround. But I would be very, as I said, suspect of is the word, of a challah recipe that didn't have bulk fermentation, and also that the 2 bulk rises, let's address that. The 2 bulk rises, it's not really necessary. In an enriched dough like challah with eggs and oil, an additional bulk fermentation is great for our lean doughs and our sourdoughs. But for an enriched dough, it's kind of overkill and not necessary, and just lengthens your production time. So those are my opinions about that. How would the breads differ, just to finish rounding out that question? Well, volume. The first challah without any bulk fermentation, I would be quite concerned that it would lack volume. It wouldn't expand as much as we'd like. So that is, any follow-up questions on challah, please. I can see the questions crystal clear. Any follow-up questions, throw them in there. All right. So we have, one of our bakers has asked for a tried and true bread recipe with a rustic crispy crust, not a sandwich bread. Yes, I will very shortly, once we're done with all the love, the baking love from Valentine's Day, my next post will be on a tried and true hearth bread that you can easily produce in your kitchen. I have about 3, and I'm going to post a master recipe with variations. My prediction is that stretch and fold, I kind of did a little bit last week, could become the new sourdough. Not that we're going to forego our carefully made quarantine and pandemic lockdown sourdoughs, but maybe shorten the process a little bit and use a little commercial yeast to bump up any sour that you may have on hand. You know, just really quickly, we've been on the website and the recipes I posted on Instagram, we've been talking about baking as self-care, and I may have said this last week, but I really believe that baking our own bread is one of the nicest things we can do one of the nicest and healthiest things we can do for ourselves as bakers. All right. So, I have a question coming in live. So let me take a live question from Chef Daniel. Chef Daniel is asking me about baker's ammonia. Any thoughts about using baker's ammonia, or ammonium carbonate is another name for it, which has, you can find it at kingarthurflour.com, and he's asking no residual aftertaste, a nice crumb as opposed to baking powder and baking soda. Well, Chef, there's not really a direct substitution for baker's ammonia and baking powder. Baker's ammonia is used in a smaller percentage in the recipe and is really a boon to cookies and to pâte à choux, or pâte à choux is the dough that we use to pipe eclairs in cream cups. It activates, especially in an environment where the baked good is leavened mostly by steam, to give that product an extra bounce. The late great Bo Freeberg, Chef Freeberg was Swedish, and I'm probably mispronouncing his last name, but he wrote The Professional Pastry Chef, which bakers is a wonderful book. It's two books. He wrote 2 books, at beginning and advance, and they're probably great to have in your library. And Chef Freeberg was a big proponent of aluminum carbonate in pâte à choux, and it's a super old school thing, but it's not. It's a good tool to have in your baker's toolbox, and that's something we could discuss on the website under recipes and blog posts at some point. That would be great. All right. So now we're done with that. We're going to take a little bit of I hope that helps, Chef and bakers. I hope that, we don't hear about aluminum carbonate very much. Sometimes it has another old-fashioned name, which makes me think of like seafaring towns. Horn salt was also sometimes known as horn salt. Anyway, I digress like I usually do. We're going to go on to a question about ganache, specifically milk chocolate ganache. And one of our bakers wrote in that she has great success with semi-sweet ganache, but less success with milk chocolate ganache. So let's break it down. Ganache is a mixture of chocolate and heavy cream, and it's used as a glaze, it's used as a filling, and it can be used as a frosting or an icing. Especially once it's whipped in the mixer, it makes for a beautiful, you can use it in place of a buttercream on a cake. Well, the thing about ganache is it's very dependent on the cacao chocolate, the cacao content in the chocolate. So for a semi-sweet chocolate that's at 54% cacao, it marries beautifully in a 1-to-1 ratio with 40% heavy cream. All right? And I'm sure I have many ganache makers in the audience, and you can put it in the chat if you make ganache all the time. But milk chocolate has milk solids and a lower cacao content. What do I mean by cacao content? Cacao is the amount of cocoa mass and cocoa liquor that are present in a chocolate. So the only types of chocolate that have, and I'm talking about couverture chocolates, all right? Not run-of-the-mill baking chips that we might use for our chocolate chip cookies and scones, but we're looking for chocolates that have a percentage on the package. So milk chocolate, good milk chocolate, has a cacao content of about 36. Now, milk chocolate is sweet, and it also has milk solids. What happens is it is not going to work well in a 1-to-1. If you use 1 part milk chocolate and 1 part heavy cream, it's never going to thicken up. It's just not good. So we have to change the ratio. We use 2 parts milk chocolate to 1 part heavy cream. Now, you all know, I would guess a lot of you know, in a traditional ganache, traditionally when we make ganache, we chop our chocolate fine, or we buy chips and Calais that are small enough, and we heat our cream to a low rolling boil. We dump it on top of the chocolate, give it a little shake-a so the chocolate submerges, count 20 or 30, and then start whisking gently or stirring from the inside to the outside until it goes from sort of a questionable mixture until a beautiful glossy swimming pool of chocolate. You just want to dive right in. Well, milk chocolate ganache, if you try that method with twice the amount of chocolate and 2 parts chocolate to 1 part cream, that chocolate's not going to melt. So what we need to do is pre-melt that milk chocolate, and then you heat the cream as normal, and you add the hot cream in a couple of increments, and you stir or whisk until smooth. And then you can, a good thing to have on hand is like a small baking tray, like an eighth, like a small sheet pan. And you can line that with plastic wrap, pour out your ganache, and then let it set up, and you will get essentially a ganache that's about the thickness of a fine truffle filling. And you can use it, and that's if it sits for a while, but as it goes from liquid to a little bit firmer, it makes a really delicious filling for, let's say, macarons, or for a really lovely cake. And if you want a little subtle flavor, you can infuse spices or citrus or something into your heavy cream to give a little bit of subtlety of flavor in your milk chocolate ganache. You can do that with any ganache, by the way. You could infuse lavender into your cream and make like a lavender white chocolate ganache. And I'm piggybacking I just mentioned the white chocolate because the technique for milk chocolate ganache is the same as the technique for white chocolate ganache is the same as milk chocolate ganache, because milk chocolate usually has no more cacao content than around 36, and then same thing, it has milk solids and vanillin in it, so it's not going to work in a one-to-one formula. All right, I hope that helps with the question about milk chocolate ganache, and let me know in the comments. Now I'm going to take a question from our live audience, and the question is about Croquembouche. Now, Croquembouche is basically a tower of perfectly baked, dipped in caramel pâte à choux balls. I posted one around Christmas time. They're very popular in France around the holidays. They'll be used as a wedding cake. They're beautiful and dramatic, and you can get very creative with them. All right? So the question is, do I need a mold to stick them, or do I just stick them to one another? All you do is stick them to one another. But they have to be the medium to get them to stick. And by the way, I do believe there are molds out there, because there's molds for everything. But the best thing to do is make about 40 to 60 medium-sized choux balls and bake them, cream puffs essentially, and then a big batch of caramel. And then what you're going to do is you're going to glue them all together with caramel. But you need to be careful because caramel is hot. So make sure that you're wearing gloves and you have, just be very, very aware. With a project like a Croquembouche, you definitely want to clear the kitchen. Children, dogs, nosy adults, everyone has to go because it's quite an involved project. For a private group, I did a Croquembouche demo live at Christmas time. And it was, you all know I'm ambitious and I'll bite off big projects, but doing a Croquembouche live was one of my biggest challenges to date. So I hope that helps, and start small. They're really pretty. The cream puffs can be filled, and then your guests can just pull the thing apart and enjoy them, or the puffs can be empty and you can use it as a centerpiece. So great. We got a confirmation on the milk chocolate ganache information that was very helpful. So that is great. All right. Our next question, which came in yesterday, is about cakes. Put in the chat how many of you love to make cakes and what's your favorite cake. All right. I'm just going to be completely transparent. This is the second episode of the Dough Doctor, but you are giving me so many ideas for future demos and blog posts, and it's just awesome. So I would love to hear. Please, please don't be shy. All right? Okay. So this question, dear chef, could we talk about sponges and appropriate fillings for bottom, mid-tiers, and tiered cakes, please? Absolutely. Our baker says she uses a wide range for single-tier cakes, but options sadly limited when I think of something really special, like for a wedding reception. Immediately, when I read that, I think about the idea of having a master recipe. So bakers, obviously we're talking about specialty cakes and wedding cakes and celebration cakes. So instead of having several recipes that we use and interchange. If we have a master sponge cake, then what we can do is we can customize it. Now, the other thing that we need to be mindful of for wedding cakes and celebration cakes that are layered, tiered, and stacked, we want to make sure that our sponge cake is sturdy enough. I mean, not sturdy like a pair of, rain boots, still delicate and delicious, but at the same time able to hold up the rest of the cake and able to sit there and be pretty, because as you know, most celebration cakes are on display for the event. So we have more to think about than, making a cake, let's say, for a family celebration where you're just going to go from your kitchen to your dining room and have the big ta-da. So I would recommend sourcing or taking your favorite sponge cake, and then it can be customized by removing some of the flour, replacing it with good Dutch processed cocoa powder, and making a chocolate version. You could also take out some of the flour and add almond flour and make like a beautiful, it's like a Swedish sponge where it's part almond flour, or part almond meal, almond flour, and part wheat flour. That can be really delicious. We have the structure building properties of the wheat flour, and then the lovely texture and perfume of the almond flour. It can also be customized with zest, and then a little soaking syrup of a matching flavor, like lemon zest in the cake, and then lemon zest in the a lemon simple syrup or a limoncello simple syrup, just to customize. I mean, I could go on and on. You could have a spice version, but my recommendation to you bakers, all of you, especially those of you who make cakes, well, almost anything, is to have your base recipe that you are confident with and you enjoy and everybody raves about, and then customize it. And as I said, by switching out some of the wheat flour for cocoa, for almond, and then if that feels too much, then play with zest, flavored cake soaking syrups, vanilla bean paste to bring out, really give you some vanilla oomph. And then one thing I'd like to experiment with is using dehydrated fruit, like we find in Trader Joe's or Whole Foods, freeze-dried fruit, not dehydrated fruit, freeze-dried fruit, and then using that in place of maybe a small amount of flour to really punch up fruit flavors. You could do with green tea, there's so many possibilities. So if our baker with the sponge cakes is in the audience, and I believe they are, please let me know if that was helpful, and I will figure out some sort of a post or a lesson or a session where I can teach you all how to do that, if that would be of interest to you. I would love to eventually, this is just, again, a quick aside, I would love to write a book, a baking book that was written that way. It's already been done in 1984, the Fannie Farmer baking book, where it was just a series of master recipes and then variations. So if you would enjoy a book like that, please put it in the chat. That I would love to know. All right, so let's see what else we have. I wanted to tease some upcoming posts for Valentine's Day. Last week we had a question about angel food cake, and I think angel food cake needs to make a comeback. I mean, I know we need the proper pan, but we can also use we can use the egg whites that come in the carton. Back in the day when you made angel food cake, you usually had to go through a dozen eggs and separate the eggs. That left you with 12 yolks just sitting in your fridge, and then you had your egg whites for your cakes. But in these modern times, we can use carton egg whites to make our angel food cake. Angel food cake is fat-free. It does have sugar in it, but everything in moderation. And so I'm going to post about angel food cake with a luscious pink strawberry buttercream for Valentine's Day. So watch for that. And for second post for Valentine's Day to watch for, heart-shaped macarons with a marshmallow filling. So that's coming up. I'm just looking for questions. Great. Oh, and our baker with the cake questions. She sounds like she is inspired. So Mrs. Spittle, yay, awesome. Now we have another question, or just a comment. Freeze-dried fruit is a game changer. You can also grind it up very, very fine and add it to your buttercreams. There's many things we can do with it. So, really, if you have a question, you want to know if it would work, you get an idea, feel free to shoot me a message. I will answer you as soon as possible. But freeze-dried fruit is kind of amazing. And for those of you who may have, and thank you, seen my Craftsy class, French miniature desserts, I do customize the macaron shells with freeze-dried fruit. Pulverize it in a mini food processor, or blenders kind of heat up your ingredients. So a mini food processor really works the best. All right. So yeah, awesome. Ooh, we have a suggestion: peach strawberry buttercream. So what you could do there, our baker is with question marks. So how would a peach strawberry buttercream work? Here's the thing with flavoring buttercreams. We can't use just fresh fruit. There has to be some sugar in with it, or the acid in the fruit can curdle our buttercreams. So what you could do is, if there's peach time or using frozen peaches, cook them down with a little sugar till they're a jam-like consistency, and then puree them, and you can add that to your buttercream. And that would be delicious. You could also, now this does make it textured, you can use jam. A really nice quality jam is a delicious addition to buttercreams. And then marry some freeze-dried strawberry powder and either peach puree and peach jam, a little of your food color to sort of even out the color, however you want it to go. With the freeze-dried powder, it's going to lend more toward pink, because the freeze-dried fruit powders work great to add color to a more natural color to our baked goods, rather than using commercial food color, though commercial food color is a lot of fun. So yeah, that is peach strawberry buttercream. Absolutely. A session on wedding cakes would be as the show grows, and I'm so grateful that you are watching. As the show grows, and it's growing every week thanks to you, I would love to have special sessions devoted to one topic. So we will definitely work on that. Everyone, we have about a minute to go. So if there are any. I'm checking for questions to make sure. Forgive me for looking down to read my questions, but it looks like there's nothing new. I don't want to miss anyone. So my final question to wrap our show today actually came through Craftsy. I still answer all the questions on my Craftsy classes, and this question came about, it was about croissants, and would it be a DoughDr episode without a croissant question? And this baker wrote into my class, Classic Croissants, Modern Techniques, and she asked, why do some croissant recipes use bread flour and some croissant recipes use all-purpose flour? And that's a great question, because you'll see that. If you bounce around the internet or you open your baking books, you'll see that difference. As a longtime croissant baker and teacher, full disclosure, at one point there were over 25,000 students in the Craftsy croissant class, because the original one was the longest running class. I really like to use King Arthur's all-purpose flour. And the reason is, you can use bread flour, but you'll find that the crumb structure is a little, when you bite into your croissant, it's going to be a little chewy. Not unpleasant, but a little chewier and less tender than when you use a high-quality, unbleached, all-purpose flour. In France, the preferred flour for croissants is a type 55 flour, and in composition and protein content, good French type 55 flour pretty much mirrors King Arthur all-purpose unbleached flour. Bob's Red Mill also works quite well, but I'm very partial to the King Arthur all-purpose flour. Everyone, it's 12:31. So we've been on for a half hour. I cannot thank you enough for spending part of your Saturday with me. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Dough Doctor. So please collect those questions, write them down, load them up on Friday, and then we'll just go from there. So until next time, enjoy your baking, because remember, baking makes life sweet. See you next week. Thank you.